Hi, I'm Jeffrey. I want to talk to you today about the importance of soil tests and asking questions when you buy large amounts of soil from an organization. You want to know what's going on with that soil because the chemical makeup and the texture and the overall composition of the soil is important for whatever type of plant you're trying to grow. If the soil isn't right, the plants are going to suffer. I'm going to show you a photo and some video of a garden, a community garden in Baltimore that I visited over the weekend. And they are running into a lot of problems. It's June and a lot of their plants are suffering. And hopefully we can figure out why. Two very important things you want to check in a soil test report are the lead levels and the pH level of the soil. The lead level is important because if you're growing a vegetable garden, you don't want lead to be going up into your plants and then into your own body when you eat them. So make sure that you're getting a lead part of a soil test. Now, some organizations do not provide lead soil tests, so you'll need to check around. Also, I'll give you a list of some organizations that do provide lead soil tests at the end of this video. The other thing you want to check is the pH level. If the pH level isn't correct for the type of plants you're trying to grow, they're really going to struggle. This is a community garden that's currently suffering from that poor soil choice. It's highly acidic. You notice how a lot of the plant growth is stunted, and this is June already. All of this is because of the pH level being 7.4 has really done some damage. Also, the potassium levels of the soil has also done considerable damage. The pepper plants are stunted. This is June. Now, I misspoke in the earlier video when I said that the 7.4 is acidic. Actually, a pH of 7.4 is highly alkaline. Now, a lot of plants will be able to tolerate a 7.4 pH, but I wouldn't risk it. Try to get that pH down to 6.5 if you can. pH levels that are in the 5s and the 6s are slightly acidic. pHs that are in the 7s are slightly alkaline. Most plants in the Virginia area and in the Maryland area prefer soils to be on the acidic side, so that's why you want it to be down in the 6s. When it starts getting to be above 7, then you may want to express a little concern. Many plants will tolerate a pH up to about 7.4, but ideally, for most vegetable gardens, you want to try to keep that pH down around 6.5. 6.5 should be what you shoot for. If it gets down to 5.5 or down to 5, that may not be too much of a concern for plants that are very much acid-loving plants, such as blueberries and azaleas. The importance of pH is also because it helps your plants take up fertilizer. When you add fertilizer to the soil, if the pH isn't right, the plant is going to have a tough time trying to take that fertilizer up. So you want to make sure the pH is right at the beginning before you start adding any kind of fertilizer. Now, some of the other gardens have managed to fare better, mainly because they added a lot of organic matter to kind of compensate for the poor soil. So a lot of the roots are actually growing into the organic matter where they're getting a lot more acidity, allowing the plant to take up nutrients better in the soil.
here, I didn't get any beans.
Now this community garden did send for a soil test report, but they sent it after they've already planted the plants. That makes it a little tougher to alter the conditions of the soil to suit the plants that they're trying to grow. What you want to do is send for that soil test report long before you start planting plants, because now it's a cleanup job. Now they have to fix the problem after the plants are already in the ground and they're already suffering. Some of them may perish and some of them may survive, just depending on how well they can alter the soil based on the recommendations given by the soil test report that they've just received. So Bill, can you tell me anything about your garden here, what you planted in your garden?
Well, I'm actually concerned. We just constructed these raised beds and we purchased gardening soil to fill them up, and it's turned out that the quality of the soil is very high in alkaline, and we're having a lot of problems with the plants. So looking at my plants, I've got my tomatoes. These have been in the ground for more than a month. All of these peppers have been in the ground for more than a month, and they're just not growing very well. So I'm realizing after a recent soil test that I have to really treat the pH quality of the soil and do some major work to repair the soil, because it's just not really working right now. You can see.
Bulk soil with a lot of stones and rocks in it should be a red flag to you. A lot of times it'll indicate that a soil has a lot of alkalinity, but that's not always the case. So don't accept soil that has a lot of stones in it. It just makes the soil difficult to work, and you also run the risk of the soil being alkaline. And it also indicates that maybe that soil's not of the best quality.
Right now. You can see. Oh my God, Barbara, that's an excellent comparison.
So let's have a look at yours. So your pepper plants, and they're looking really good. Was there anything that you did to the soil to change?
It was just a different soil.
You just had a different soil.
Right.
So
Oh my God, Barbara, that's
so you
incredible.
didn't use any of the new soil from.
My new soil is only in the first bed,
Oh,
which
so.
I am having trouble with.
Oh, okay.
But the back 3 beds is all old soil.
Oh, Barbara, I'm going to cry. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
I'll share
and see,
my
look at the
peppers. I'll share
difference.
my
Thank you.
This is the old soil that was not used. This was, and then this is the soil that was brought in, the mystery soil.
Yeah. And then over here.
So these are examples of the new soil and the old soil, and then some of the new soil that was amended. Which one was that? Tama and Martin's?
Not the, yeah, the one in the middle.
The one in the middle.
Yes.
One of the ways that you can bring acidity to your soil, to bring that down below a 7, is to add plenty of organic matter to your soil. Ground up leaves, ground up tree trunks and branches usually will do the trick, but it's a very slow process. It doesn't happen right away. It takes several months. So if you have a soil that's very, very alkaline, it's not going to become acid in just a couple of weeks or even a couple of days. You need to make sure that the soil is at the proper pH level before you put your plants in the ground. There are also other things you can do to increase this acidity of your soil. One of them is iron sulfate. There are other chemicals you can use, which I'll list here in this video, but the one I recommend if you're going to use for chemical alteration is iron sulfate, or you can use a nitrogen-rich fertilizer such as blood meal. A good soil test that's provided by an organization will also give you recommendations on how to amend the soil necessary for your plants to thrive. So when you send that soil test into the organization, tell them what plants you're trying to grow, whether you're trying to grow flowers or vegetables or a particular type of plant. They'll give you a recommendation on how to amend the soil to suit that plant. When the organization from which you get your soil test gives you instructions on how to alter or amend the soil, follow it to the letter. Don't try to add more, don't try to do less. Do exactly what is asked of you.
Unfortunately about our new soil with its deficiencies, this was planted as a brand new tomato plant with some fruit already on it, lush green foliage, and it's like dead. And the other ones, they're looking so unhealthy. So this is the problem that we're having with the soil.
You'll notice in soil reports they don't tell you how much nitrogen is in the soil. And that is because nitrogen has a tendency to not stay in the soil for very long. It tends to wash away with rains and with irrigation, so it often has to be replenished. Two other things you can do over the winter time if you're going to be carrying your plot in a community garden over to the next season is adding a cover crop. You can contact your local cooperative extension on some ideas of cover crops that you can use. A lot of them are going to be legumes like alfalfa or vetch. Those are two examples. And also peanuts is another example of a nitrogen fixing cover crop that you can use. One word about phosphates in a fertilizer. It's that second number when you see that 3-number identification of a fertilizer. Try to refrain from using a lot of phosphates, and that's mainly for the Chesapeake Bay. Sometimes you'll see the super triple phosphate being used in a garden. Use it sparingly or not at all. Sometimes in drastic measures, when a soil is just not right for a particular plant, you may have to actually transplant the plant. You may have to actually take the plant up, take a lot of the soil out or all of the soil and replace it with soil that's going to be appropriate for the plant, especially a plant that's only going to be growing for one season like a vegetable plant. So you'll need to decide how important that is to you. Altering the soil can often take time, especially if you're going to do it the organic way. This is the reason why proper soil selection is important. This is why it is important to ask before you purchase the soil. When you get bulk soil from an organization, ask questions. Ask a lot of questions. Ask if there's lead in the soil. Ask for the pH level of the soil. Ask those questions, especially if you're spending a lot of money and you're spending a lot of time putting plants in, especially in a community garden where there's a lot of people involved, or if you're putting in a vegetable garden for yourself. You want to know what's going on with that soil. It can affect the growth of your plants, and it can also affect your health. When you ask questions of an organization, if you're not getting satisfactory answers, then it's time for you to find another organization to get your soil. You want to use the best type of soil for your plants. If you have any questions at all about starting a community garden or starting your own personal garden, I recommend that you contact your local cooperative extension for plenty of information that they have on how to start a garden.